I've had the pleasure of visiting Hong Kong a couple of times, and it's a wonderful city, truly in the league of London, Paris, New York, in many ways. Obviously, it's very Chinese, but you have a great history and legacy of British, and you have hundreds of thousands of expats from around the world. It's an amazing cosmopolitan city, a very exciting place, very vibrant. And I fear that all of those special things are about to be taken away from it. We will be doing more reporting from Hong Kong itself. I'll give you more details on that once our people are in place. But I had an idea, because really under Ahmed Hassan, who's now thankfully been replaced as immigration minister by another Toronto MP, Marco Mendicino, Justin Trudeau has jacked up immigration numbers to 350,000 a year, of whom less than half are economically valid migrants. Most of them are either refugees or, grandparents who are just coming here for the free pensions and healthcare. And I thought to myself, we take every scruffy illiterate in the world in the name of diversity. People who, for example, in the case of Trudeau's Syrians, 5 years later still don't speak the language. They still haven't integrated. They still don't have a job. We take everyone like that. But what about these real refugees from Hong Kong? I'm talking about the political refugees, the dissidents standing up to the People's Liberation Army. I'm not talking about taking 8 million people from Hong Kong. Canada can't do that. But what about taking a few hundred, a few thousand, some of the student leaders who, God forbid, may be facing death? Isn't that the test? And here's the thing. Unlike Trudeau's favored style of refugee, well, here's a few characteristics about these Chinese democracy activists in Hong Kong. First of all, they obviously have a deep commitment to Western values, the rule of law, separation of political parties from the justice system, independent courts, free speech. They bring those things that Trudeau's refugees from Syria and Somalia simply don't. They speak English. In fact, they speak very good English with a trace of a British accent. They're well educated. In fact, the students who have been leading the protests are usually university students. In many cases, they're wealthy or entrepreneurial. And of course, Hong Kong has virtually no welfare state. These are not people who, if they came to Canada, would simply go right on the dole. We know they don't have the welfare mindset. We know they're not jihadists. In fact, it's been remarkable how peaceful and orderly these protests in Hong Kong have been. And finally, and I don't think this is insignificant, they would be a counterweight to the communist mainland Chinese immigrants in Canada. As we've shown you in recent weeks, a great many Communist Party types from the mainland China have come to Canada and are, they're having Chinese legions. They're having Communist Party events in Canada. And I think it would be very important and useful to have freedom-loving Hong Kong Chinese here in Canada to help cauterize the Chinese community here against the excesses of Beijing. And to this effect, I've started a petition, and it's a little bit unusual for us because, of course, we've been the people who've said put a pause on refugees, stop the number of refugees. But I think for the reasons I've listed, if we're going to be taking 340,000 migrants a year to Canada, and if we're setting aside some of those spaces for refugees, why don't we take these refugees? Vet them, of course, but there's no jihadists coming from Hong Kong. Make sure they speak English, of course, but they all do, unlike folks from Syria, Somalia, or Afghanistan. Make sure they have skills, but they all do. Bring the political dissidents, bring them here. Let them help make Canada great. Let them help strengthen our own resolve for freedom and democracy. I don't have an answer on the exact number that it should be, if it's 10,000 or Trudeau's favorite number of 50,000 that he used with the Syrians. I'm not saying millions. But if we have to choose, if Justin Trudeau is saying we're going to have 350,000 a year, why don't we choose some people for once who absolutely love the Canadian way of life, love freedom, and are actually willing to risk their own lives for it? Yeah, I could picture a few more of them in Canada. Couldn't you? That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show, which is a show I do every day. I do a monologue, interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at premium.rebelnews.com.